of Samuel. First reading is from chapter 8, and then the second reading is from chapter 10. When Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons as judges for Israel. The name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second was Abijah, and they served at Beersheba. But his sons did not walk in his ways. They turned aside after dishonest gain and accepted bribes and perverted justice. So all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. They said to him, "You are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have." And when they said, "Give us a king to lead us," this displeased Samuel. So he prayed to the Lord, and the Lord told him, "Listen to all that the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected. They have rejected me as their king, as they have done from the day I brought them up out of Egypt until this day, forsaking me and serving other gods. So they are doing to you. Now listen to them, but warn them solemnly and let them know what the king who will reign over them will do." Samuel told them all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking him for a king. He said, "This is what the king who will reign over you will do. He will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses. They will run in front of the chariots. Some he will assign to be commanders of thousands and commanders of fifties, and others to plow his ground and to reap his harvest, and still others to make weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your field and your vineyards and olive groves and give them to his attendants. He will take a tenth of your grain and your vintage and give it to his officials and attendants. Your men servants and your maid servants and the best of your cattle and donkeys he will take for his own use. He will take a tenth of your flocks, and you yourselves will become his slaves. When that day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, and the Lord will not answer you in that day." The people refused to listen to Samuel. "No," they said, "we want a king over us. Then we will be like all the other nations, with a king to lead us and to go out before us and to fight our battles." Samuel heard all that the people said. He repeated it before the Lord, and the Lord answered, "Listen to them and give them a king." Then Samuel said to the men of Israel everywhere, "Go back to his town." Continuing in chapter 10. Samuel summoned the people of Israel to the Lord at Mizpah and said to them, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, said. I brought you up out of the land of Egypt, and I delivered you from the power of the Egyptians and all the kingdoms that oppressed you. But you have now rejected your God, who saves you out of all your calamities and distresses. And you said, 'No, set a king over us.' So now present yourselves before the Lord by your tribes and your clans." When Samuel brought out all the tribes of Israel nearby, the tribe of Benjamin was chosen. Then he brought forward the tribe of Benjamin clan by clan, and Matri's clan was chosen. Finally Saul, son of Kish, was chosen. But when they looked for him, he was not to be found. So they inquired further of the Lord, "Has this man come here yet?" And the Lord said, "Yes, he has hidden himself among the baggage." They ran and brought him out, and as he stood among the people, he was a head taller than any of the others. Samuel said to all the people, "Do you see the man the Lord has chosen? There is no one like him among all the people." Then the people shouted, "Long live the king!" This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. If you weren't here last week, we're in the middle of a series on change. And so last week and this week and the next 2 weeks, we're going to be looking at change. And last week, there was a couple of changes, and we're still getting used to a few of those changes. Sunday school was changed to 8:45 instead of 9 o'clock. And there were a few people that they couldn't even remember the last time Sunday school wasn't at 9 o'clock. I mean, they know in the past it had been at another time, but they couldn't remember when it had been that Sunday school wasn't at 9. And so it will take some adjustment getting used to, oh, it's 15 minutes earlier. we also are making changes in Kids Night Out. And so if you have kids that are planning to come to that this coming Friday, we are making sure you register and that you sign up so we know who's coming. We looked at both of those situations, the Sunday school situation and the Kids Night Out situation over the summer, and we looked at them and we evaluated, is there a need to change something? And our answer was yes. With Sunday school, we said, well, there's an issue now because suddenly we have a lot of babies in the church. And the adult Sunday school is in the nursery, and when parents come to drop off their kids, the adult Sunday school isn't quite finished every week. And then the other situation is when they are finished, it's because the choir has let out early, and so half of the class is practicing, and so Sunday school is often cut short or it often goes long. And so to help with those parents, we made a shift and a change to address a need that was there. We did a similar thing with Kids Night Out, evaluating and deciding what might need to be changed. Well, if you walked in this morning, you saw there are more changes. There's no longer carpet out in the narthex. And I heard a few people talking about them remembering 20 years ago when there was no carpet in the narthex. Kind of funny at times how things can come full circle. That over time you get used to something, but when you begin to realize you've actually come from somewhere else, and you can go back there, you can change things one way or the other. Well, we also have talked about a few other things. We talked about my hair last week too. And we talked about there was a need for change. And after the service, I talked with a few people, and I was thinking that we had identified that maybe the problem was my hair was too long. Maybe that really wasn't the problem. I thought, maybe if I part it on the other side. So my hair's parted the other direction this morning. Maybe that would take care of the change that was needed. And then I thought, that didn't really do much of a change. So I'm going to color my hair. So I thought, people are always talking about how blondes have more fun. So I went and I bought a box that said Ultra Blonde. And I read the side of it, and it said, here are the instructions and how long you need to put it on. And it said if you have light hair, it'll take 20 minutes for your hair to lighten. If you have medium to dark hair, add another 20 minutes. And if you have dark hair, forget it. It isn't going to happen. I said, oh, really? Let's find out. And so I put it on, and if I had just light brown hair, it should have taken 45 minutes, and I figured I'll add another 15, 20 minutes. So I left it in for a full hour, and surprise, surprise, this is as blonde as my hair gets. This is ultra blonde. Not what I expected, not what I had purchased, not what I was going for, but that's it. The box gave me a warning that it wouldn't happen, and I said, well, let's find out anyway, because it's what I want. And in fact, I had bought a second box and was going to use that, and afterwards I just said, forget it. It's not worth it. This change isn't going to happen. No matter how hard I try, my hair is going to take an awful lot of work to get blonde, and within a week you're going to see black roots, and so that's not going to be good either. One of the things that we often do when we identify that there's a need for change is we let something else get in the way of what the actual change should be. I mean, we were pretty clear last week that the change that needed to happen was my hair was too long. And afterwards I had a few people telling me that, you know what, actually they kind of liked my hair long. And in fact I had several people come up and say, you know what, it gives them hope. Because seeing someone with hair gives them hope that perhaps one day they could have hair. And in fact, I had one person tell me this, grow, baby, grow. And so I began to question if the change I needed to make was the one I'd identified. And then I said, well, it's clear that something needs to happen with my hair. Let's find another way, because I'm not really the one that wants it to be short. Brandy and several other people are the ones encouraging me and telling me it should be short, and it should have been short 6 months ago. So we do this. We decide what we want, and we identify a change, and so we change to what we want instead of change to what we need. Instead of making the change that we should, we pick something else to change that has little to do with the outcome we actually have identified as a problem. And that's exactly where we find our text this morning. We find the people of Israel in a situation where Samuel, the man who has been leading them, has grown old. He is no longer able to lead, and he has appointed his sons to lead in his place. But there's a problem. His sons are corrupt. They're out for greed. They pervert justice. They take bribes. They do whatever they want and take advantage of the whole situation. The elders have clearly seen, and when the elders come to Samuel, they say, there are two problems. One is you're old and you can't lead. That's clear, we see that. Two, the replacements that are there to replace you, they're horrible. They're worse than worse. Their character is awful. And then they come up with a solution that has very little to do with what they've identified as the problem. They say, we want a king. And we can see their motivation because they say, we want, remember that. We want, not we need, not we think, not we have been praying about. They said, we want. We want to be like the other nations. They're comparing themselves to others around them. They're not sitting down and evaluating what does God want for them. They're looking around at all of their neighbors and saying, that looks good over there. I want a part of it. So as they present this to Samuel, they have clearly identified the problem, but their solution is what they want, not what God wants, not what they need, not what is in their best interest. Samuel sees this, he knows this, he understands it, and in fact, he goes to God and he prays and he says, God, this is what they're doing. And God's reply to him is, I know. They have been doing this from the very day I took them out of Egypt until today. They've been rejecting me over and over and over and over again. And now they're rejecting you, but they're not really rejecting you. They're rejecting me as their king. They no longer want to follow me. They want to continue to follow all the other gods. So give them what they want. Give them exactly what they want. But warn them of this. And here's kind of, when I was doing my hair, there was a warning on the side of the box. There were some instructions. There were some things that I should have listened to instead of going forward. Here's the first of those warnings. Here's the first of those red flags that the people of Israel totally, blatantly ignored because they wanted something and they didn't care. They wanted it and they wanted that change, so they went forward with it. So the first warning is, here's what the king will do to you. He's going to take your sons and your daughters. Your sons are going to be in the army. They're going to be captains. They're going to be doing all kinds of things. They're going to be serving in the military. They're going to be making weapons. They're going to be farming his fields. They're going to be taking all of your kids and they're going to serve the king now. Instead of serving you and providing for you and your family, they'll go to the king. Not only that, all of your crops, he's going to take a tenth of them. All of your cattle, he's going to take a tenth of them. All of your wealth, he's going to take part of what you have. He is going to be so oppressive towards you, you will actually be slaves to the king. And when the people hear this, they say, give us a king. Give us a king. It doesn't matter. That's what we want. Give it to us. It doesn't matter what the warning is. Just like I wanted blonde hair, it didn't matter what the side of the box said, I was going to try it anyway. So as they go forward, we didn't read the part about when Samuel goes out and he seeks who God would have, but he goes out and he finds Saul, and he anoints Saul. So Saul has already been anointed with oil. Saul already knows he's to be king. And when they gather all of the tribes together, all of them lined up, every single tribe, and Samuel now starts going through and saying, which tribe is it going to be? He comes to Benjamin and he says, this is the tribe. Now here's the second red flag. Now maybe you don't see this one or you're not sure why this would be a red flag. But if we go back to Moses, if we go back to Jacob, when they spoke about when Israel someday would have a king, they were unanimous about one thing. The king would come from the tribe of Judah. Now, Samuel has just stopped on Benjamin and said the king is coming from this tribe. Every single one of them should have known this was a mistake because the king isn't supposed to come from Benjamin. And even if people didn't quite know that or wouldn't stick up for it, I mean, Judah should have at least been greedy and said, hold on. I remember somewhere hearing that Judah's the one supposed to have the king. Benjamin better not be getting it. You better come over here and find one of us. I mean, they didn't even do that. They just went along with whatever. As long as they were getting a king, they didn't care what was going to happen. So they narrow it down to Saul. And where's Saul? He's not there. It's not like Saul doesn't know what's happening. Really, all of this is just a coronation process. He already knows he's the king. This is for the rest of the people to see and to know and to acknowledge him. And where is he hiding? Hiding in the baggage. Now, I don't know about you. We're in the middle of a presidential election, but I don't see any television ads that tout their cowardice. That tout that when 9/11 happened, they were hiding under a desk somewhere crying like a baby. I don't see them ever talking about their horrible, horrible mistakes or their things, their fears. And this is right in front of all the people. It's right there. He's over hiding in the baggage. God has to tell them where he is because they've searched so high and low. He's hiding so well in the baggage they can't even find him. And when they bring him out, he's a foot taller than everyone else. And that's what they see. That's what they see. He's a foot taller than everyone else. This guy's going to be great. There were red flags all over this process. There were things showing up over and over again saying, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this. And over and over again they said, it's what we want, it's what we want, it's what we want, we don't care. We know that there's a change that needs to happen, so give us what we want. Sometimes we can identify clearly the change that needs to be made, but we totally miss changing the right thing. We instead allow other motivation to come in and change things in a different direction. We allow things to sneak in so that we can do what we want and justify it. Change doesn't matter if it's the wrong change. Now, maybe you're not as familiar with the way our church structure happens. The way that our church and our classes and our clusters and our denomination, all that stuff, that's okay. I was at our classes meeting on Friday night and on Saturday. And the word classes, what it means is a fleet of ships. The idea and the image behind classes is that we are a group of churches together. By being together, moving together, going after God's vision and His purpose, we're able to stay together, grow together, protect each other, and accomplish greater things than we could by ourselves. That's the whole premise and purpose behind the classes. So we gather together, and our classes is in the middle of changing some things. We're in the middle of actually making some very, very significant changes. And this may sound strange for people outside of this region of the country, South Dakota classes and North Dakota classes is on the cutting edge. We're going to a system called clusters, which means, you know what? We have churches all the way in North Dakota and all the way over to Mitchell and here in Brookings and out in Sioux Falls. It's very difficult for us to actually group together as effectively because of distance. So what we're going to do is we're going to create these clusters. If you will, we're going to take our fleet of ships, our fleet of churches, and we're going to divide them into a left flank and a center and a right flank. And so we've divided into 3 groups of churches where we can more effectively be together, but when we come together as a large group, we can still do great things. So we've made this huge change and shift. There's 1 or 2 other classes who are trying this as well. So we're trying to figure out how it works. One of the things over the last year we've figured out as a classes is under this new kind of thinking, we need a clear, defined leader of our classes. Our old system has been, you have a vice president for 1 year, then they serve as a president for 1 year, and then they are out of office. And what we have is a lack of continuity. We have no clear, defined leadership. We have no one who is directing and helping us lead and saying, here's where we need to go, here's what we need to do. So we voted on a change this weekend. We voted to take and change that president role to a 3-year term. And then allow them to be reelected, so there is a chance for continuity, a chance for real leadership to develop. And instead of just having an election, it's going to be a hired position. So there'll be a search process, there'll be names recognized, we'll go through and we'll decide if the person being nominated has the qualifications to actually set a vision and lead. So we won't get stuck in the problem of, it's my turn to lead, so I will even if I can't. And we also know that this is a huge change, and we know that we also, I thought this was great that this was brought up, and maybe other people did, but they said, you know what, we're kind of nice to people around here. What if the person really isn't the right person, and what it was originally designed to be was an annual renewable, so we could just go on indefinitely? What if we really need to replace the person, but we just feel too guilty to say, sorry, we need to replace you? Because we don't want to hurt their feelings. We don't want them to feel bad. And you know what? We're still going to have them in our classes. So how do we treat that? And so they said, well, let's put a mechanism in there and put term limits in and put a limit in there so that we don't get stuck in not seeing change needs to happen and going forward and making that change later. And then on top of all this, as we're having the conversation, here was one of the coolest things we did too. We said, we're going to make all these changes believing that this is where God is leading us, believing that this is going to help us accurately change the thing we've identified needs to be changed, lack of leadership. But we realize if this doesn't work, we're going to change it again. If we need to go to a different system, if we need to change it to 2-year terms, we need to change it to 4-year terms, we need to change it entirely and not have it be the president, have someone else, we're going to come back and we're all going to remember. I thought that was kind of, well, we have the minutes to look back on, but we said we're all going to remember that we said we could change this. And that's the beauty at times when we move and we let the wind and the Spirit of God move us. Is as we're moving, we get to change a little bit and change a little bit and correct and get to where God is leading us. Unlike the way the children of Israel did it. Instead of going before God in prayer, instead of identifying the problem and laying the problem at God's feet and saying, God, what is your plan? Help our plan be your plan. They went to God and said, here's our plan, bless our plan. And in fact, we don't care if you bless our plan, just make our plan happen. And so as we're talking about change and we're looking at different things and we continue to evaluate, are there things that are clear we need to change? Let's lay those before God. Let's determine what His plan is and follow His plan. Let's not lay out what our plan is and say, God bless it, because that won't happen. We'll be doing nothing different than what the children of Israel did and said, this is what we want, so give it to us. The problem is that's very difficult to do. And that's very time-consuming. And it's very hard at times to see we're moving in the right direction. But the good thing is, it's God's plan. And if it's supposed to happen, God's already planned it out. And if it's supposed to happen, God's already provided the way. Let us pray.